is the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show with Joel Luna and Sam Cinta, bringing you this week's latest on the gridiron from around the bend.
Hello, good evening, and welcome everybody to a special edition of the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show. I am Sam Cinta here, bringing you a special preview show ahead of a massive matchup, our game of the year, certainly in 5A-D2, but really for the Fort Bend Herald coverage area. Number 2, Randle against number 3, Iowa Colony. Thursday, 7 p.m., Guy K. Traylor Memorial Stadium in Rosenberg. A rematch of the Lions' 30-10 win in the regular season and 21-14 win in the Region 3 final from NRG Stadium in Houston in December. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It has been a long time since I have been this excited to cover a regular season high school football game. It's been a long time since I've been this excited to cover a regular season anything game, to be totally honest. I'll tell a brief story. There was one game I did while I was at the Northwest Signal newspaper in Napoleon, Ohio, that featured an unbeaten top 5 ranked Liberty Center Tiger team going up against the Patrick Henry Patriots. That's a rivalry matchup. That is one of the premier rivalries in Northwest Ohio. Liberty Center and Patrick Henry, both in their own rights, outstanding small school programs in rural Ohio and Henry County. It's really crazy that they're both in the same county to begin with, but there's an unbeaten Liberty Center team against a 6-3 Patrick Henry team, and that might not sound remarkable for those Patriots, but it was a team that had dealt with the loss of 2 teammates in a car accident that previous March and had started the year 0-3 and had a remarkable turnaround that culminated not only in a playoff berth, but a win over their unbeaten arch rivals to win the conference championship on the last game of the year. Regular season games don't really get bigger than matchups like that. That was obviously an incredibly emotional moment for the whole community. It's a really small community. I have a graduating class in the dozens. So a loss like that's always horrible, but it hit this community particularly hard. And I've always said that's the most compelling story. I hope that's the most compelling story I ever have to tell in my career. I never want to have to go through a situation quite like that again. But that's the only other regular season game in my memory, throughout the course of my career, that has had this level of anticipation to it. Iowa Colony is one of 3 teams that gave Randle a game at all last year. Brenham, it was a 2-score game at the final, but it was a 21-14 game late. Of course, South Oak Cliff in the state title game, as it should have been. But Iowa Colony twice. And this is a legacy game in a lot of respects. It's an Iowa Colony team that returned a lot of talent. They lost some guys. They returned a lot of talent. Guys like Jaden Warren, Connie Watts that are going to UH next year, right? Aaron Tenner, a really good sophomore back. He's averaging 107 yards of offense a game right now. He's got 8 touchdowns, 5 on the ground, through the air. Jaden Warren is an exceptional receiver, exceptional athlete. Boogie has 17 catches, 282 yards, and 8 touchdowns already. The Randle defense is going to have its hands full. It's equipped for that. The Randle defense is as good as anybody. The biggest question I think that we had here at the Fort Bend Herald office coming into the season was how good the defense was going to be. You're bringing back Landen Williams-Callis offensively. Tyler Scribanik's your senior starting quarterback. You've got Mason Mixon and Cedric McClintock and DeCorian Rubin coming in, that senior pass catchers that have experience leading the Lions. The defense, I think, with the loss of Chase Sims and Blake Thompson and Sherrod Rivas and Wayne Kelly and Eric Strickland, I know they lost him to injury, but just another guy graduating. The defense was the question. And so far, with the exception of a weird game against Fort Bend Travis a couple of weeks ago, they've held serve. a shutout, I think 2 games where they've allowed 6 points, and then the weird 29 points allowed to the Tigers. So the Lions in that defense with Jalen Burton and his 2 sacks. Robert Bennett's got a couple picks. He's played really, really well. The linebacking core, which is probably the best in the state in 5A, and Noriel Dominguez and Ryan Mallory, they've done great. Cameron Hippolyte's made plays on the defensive line. They've just got dudes kind of all over the field. Julian Jarena, who moved in from Hinesville, Georgia. Just a lot to like for Randle, but again, a lot of athletes on the other side to like for Iowa Colony that make this a tantalizing matchup. It's so interesting. And talking with Matt, as you'll hear here in a little bit, he's really excited. He's good. Duty calls him away. I think he said he's going to be in Garland on Thursday night. So he's not going to be in person at Trailer, but he's going to be paying attention to this game because it is so big and it means so much for not just, again, this district race in 9-5A, but beyond in Region 3. It's who is going to be particularly hungry in a possible rematch in the postseason, who's going to set themselves up with a win, essentially. And we're going to find that out this week. And again, really excited to bring you guys the action from Trailer Stadium. Again, I will be tweeting out the action at StatSinta on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And as Matt talks about a little bit later in this, again, it will be the free live show of the week on Texan Live for that great broadcast that they do. It's going to be really, really cool. And I'm excited to see everybody up there and hopefully jam-packed stands at Trailer Stadium. Hopefully stands on the other side are jam-packed. We just have a great environment. It's a spectacle. Should be, just a highlight. Best game at Trailer Stadium in quite a while. So we're really excited. And of course, a big week for the Fort Bend Herald. You've got, Randle, of course, on Thursday night, Battle of the Berg Friday night, Lamar Consolidated and Terry, and then Saturday afternoon, George Ranch and Foster, and another great rivalry there. So 3 really good games at Trailer, full show at A-Leaf Taylor Thursday. We've got Needville playing Sealy Friday night from Blue Jay Stadium. Couple good games as well. Needville's the only one not quite in district play yet. I think this is their district non-district finale this week. So a lot of action here, but again, we wanted to highlight the Lions and Iowa Colony. And in this conversation that you're about to hear with Matt Stepp of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, you're going to hear us talk about this game coming up with the Pioneers. You're also going to hear us talk a little bit about Landen Williams-Callis. We're going to talk about some great rivalries across the state, some things that Matt's got a chance to see throughout the course of his career. And he gives us a little bit of a peek into the whole operation at Dave Campbell's and how they're able to pull just a nonstop barrage of information together into something that's cohesive and balanced and deep and provides value to its subscribers, to the people that read the free stuff and watch the free videos and listen to the podcasts. It's all good stuff. It's, it's baffling how they're able to pull together what they pull together. So without any further ado, I want you guys to enjoy this conversation I had with Matt. I really appreciate him taking the time out of his enormously busy schedule to chat and talk a little bit Fort Bend football and everything going on LCISD and whatnot. So here is the conversation with Dave Campbell, Texas Football's Matt Stepp. All right, here now with Matt Stepp on the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard podcast. Matt, of course, with Dave Campbell's Texas Football, probably the most plugged in guy in all of the sport in terms of what's going on around the state. Matt, thanks for coming on, and we got a great week ahead of us.
Yeah, Sam, appreciate you having me on. It's always good to talk high school football. I've enjoyed sharing a press box with you a time or two during the playoffs and hope to do it again. So it's a pleasure to talk a little ball with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And of course, big games all over the place. But for us, one that we've kind of had circled on our calendar since December, if we're being honest, right? This is round 3 for Randle and Iowa Colony. It's a team that or matchup that happened twice. The regular season game last year, relatively close for what Randle did. But of course, the regional final at NRG Stadium, 21-14 in overtime. This is number 2 versus number 3. Probably the 2 top favorites there in Region 3 as well. What are you looking for the most tomorrow night at Trailer?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was at the game at NRG last year. It was a knockdown, drag out war. You hate to use that term. when it comes to football. But in football terms, it was a slugfest, rock fight. It was a physical football game. And so, in Iowa Colony, their only 2 losses last year were to Randle. I mean, they have a case that they were probably one of the top 3 teams in the state of Texas last year, and they bring quite a bit back. So they're going to be a big challenge for Randle, who holds the state's longest 11-man winning streak, along with Salina. And so, it's going to be it's the game of the week in the state, in my opinion. I would encourage anyone, if you can, get out to Trailer Stadium on Thursday night. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. If you're out of the area and can't make it, we are streaming the game on YouTube for free. It's Dave Campbell's Rising Game of the Week. We pick a game every Thursday night to stream for free, and this one was our free streaming game. So if you're out of area and you're interested, you can watch it on YouTube for free. But I would encourage you to go to the game. Go. There's nothing. Texas high school football is a spectator sport. It's nothing like being in the stadium and being in the atmosphere of the bands. It's going to be fun. As far as on the field, what I'm looking for, I think Iowa Colony is going to be hell-bent on trying to slow down Landen Williams-Callis. Easier said than done, but they did a better job than most last year in the playoffs. Now, I don't think Landen was 100% last year at that point, but I think they did do a decent job trying to slow him. You don't stop a guy like that. You just hope that he doesn't gash you for an 80-yarder. And so I think Iowa Colony is going to say, okay, we got to make Tyler Skrbonek beat us, and if he beats us, we can live with it and we just tip our cap and move on. But I think if you're Iowa Colony, that's the game plan is if you're going to lose, don't let Landen Williams-Callis run for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think that's kind of what South Oak Cliff, that was kind of their game plan last year in a lot of ways is Keelan Sweeney beat him, and so that's what happened. Keelan Sweeney's gone, so I think it's on Tyler Skrbonek from that side of the ball. I think defensively, Iowa Colony presents a lot of challenges because they're so fast. They have so much speed on both sides of the ball. I think Randall's going to rely on their physical nature. Their defense plays a very physical style, and I think they're going to try to be physical with Iowa Colony and punish them. And try to, get them to, by the third quarter, tap out. I think it's kind of what they did in the first game a little bit. And then the second game, it was more of a 4+ quarter fight. So those are the kind of things I'm looking for. I won't be at this game. Obviously, we'll have some other folks from Dave Campbell's at the game. But I'll tell you this, Sam, the game that I'm at Thursday night, I will have my tablet out, and it will be locked into Randle and Iowa Colony. So those are the kind of things I'm personally looking at in this ball game.
Sure. And something I thought was interesting, I was talking with Brian Randall earlier today about this. If you look at this year's Iowa Colony team, loaded D1 talent, great athletes on both sides of the ball. 2 losses, you mentioned this, 2 losses a year ago, both to Randall. Randall, a season ago, is coming off of a year where they only had 3 losses, but 2 of them were to Huntsville. Huntsville in district play, and then again, a 1-point loss in playoffs, a game. Every single time I bring it up, I think Brian Randall's eyes start twitching. It's a game that he still today thinks they should have won. In a lot of respects, I think Iowa Colony thinks they should have won that regional final game at NRG Stadium, this past year. He sees this year's Pioneers and last year's Lions as very, very similar, teams in very similar situations.
Yeah, Coach Randall's always great for a good quote. He's a really introspective and thoughtful guy. And so it's really a valid, I think, look. And I think he's taking a step back and obviously he wants to kick their butt Thursday night. He's an ultimate competitor, but I think when you take a step back, he does see a lot of similarities, maybe not in the style of play, but I think in how their programs have been built and how where they are in their program timeline. So yeah, I think that's spot on assessment. I think Iowa Colony last year, we kind of all thought from a statewide level, Randall was going to be really good. We didn't know how good. Until about week 6 or week 7 after they had, drubbed Iowa Colony and Fort Bend Marshall. And we know how good Iowa Colony is, but how good could they be? We think they're, they have, I think they have a chance to. This is going to be a really close football game. I'll be surprised if it's a blowout either way. It's high school football. Strange things happen, but I think we're looking at a 1-score game, and I think it's going to be really close. And and it might be the first of two meetings in this season, and it wouldn't shock me at all. And if it is, I'm hoping maybe I can make the second one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You touched on this a little bit, talking about Landen maybe not having been at 100% in that regional final, and I don't think he was for the state final either. I think that was maybe going back to the Elgin game in the district or the area round up in Bryan. I think that he kind of got a little dinged up and was dealing with that the rest of the way. That in mind, right? And in your experience covering, Texas high school sports for as long as you have, how hard is that to have a 16-game season and then try to repeat that feat? That's a lot more football than a lot of other teams around the state are playing. That wears on kids, right?
Oh, yeah. It wears on kids. It wears on coaches. I mean, I was talking to South Oak Cliff head coach Jason Todd about this at coaching school. They played in 4 straight state championships. That's 64 football games in 4 years. That's a lot of football games, a lot of football games that their coaches have coached in, a lot of practices. It can wear on you if you don't. You've got to really learn how to manage how much contact these guys are taking, especially later in the year. And I think most coaches are pretty good about that. You go out to a practice in September, it looks a lot different than a practice does in early December. At that point, it's a lot more just classroom work. It's a lot more walkthrough, game planning, mental preparation, situational football. This is what these guys are going to throw at us. They're not out there doing Oklahoma drills, in the 4th round of the playoffs. So you got to manage that, but once the game starts, you can't control that. So I think there's something to it. I think it does help build a program when you play that many games, because you bring up the JV guys, they're playing. The better JV players may get some special teams action. If you're lucky enough to have a playoff blowout, like Randle, the first couple of rounds they had some lopsided playoff games. They probably got to work in some young JV guys into the 4th quarter of those games. That's invaluable experience for those guys. So, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think, you got to manage it, and it is tough. It's really difficult, and repeating is tougher than winning winning the first one is really hard. Winning 2 in a row is even harder, and it gets harder every year. That's why, programs like Carthage and Aledo and Katy, back in the day, there's so much respect for those programs because they've done it for such a long period of time. And the people that have been to the top of that mountain know how hard it is to get there, but it's even harder to stay there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Randall's been talking about is he has an opportunity to grow this program. He told me back in the spring, he said, hey, I got a couple offers, 6A programs were interested in bringing me aboard, but coaching at the school named after my dad, just won a state title here. I'm pretty happy. I feel like I have a chance to build something that could potentially last. And to your point, having 6 extra games a year, as many extra games a year as you can build into that playoff, schedule is going to help out a ton. Name recognition as well as getting just, stuff for your kids and reps on the field.
Sure.
Specifically for the Lions though, right? Like, you're playing in one of the toughest, if not the toughest district in 5A D2, having Iowa Colony and Fort Bend Marshall there as well. And then they're in Region 3, with Brenham and all of those other guys on a path in the playoffs. What, maybe outside of Randle and Iowa Colony, who are the main contenders in Region 3 for you? And what challenges would they pose in a potential repeat run for the Lions?
I think you touched on the obviously Iowa Colony, that goes without saying. I think you get outside of the district. I think you touched on Brenham. I think Brenham has the potential to be a very good football team. I saw them in week 1 against Huntsville, and Huntsville's pretty good, and they handled Huntsville about 3 touchdowns. Danny Young's has a very good ball club there. Ton of experience back. They might be the most experienced team returning in Region 3. And I think the other thing is they had some confidence. They played Randle last year in a very close football game without at the time, their best player. Now that player has transferred on to a private school in the Woodlands, but Brenham played Randle without him last year. That was a 21-14 game late in the 4th quarter until Landen Williams-Callis caught a swing pass at the backfield and did Landen Williams-Callis stuff. It was a heck of a ball game there in Waller. I was there. and it was cold, and we were sitting out. I think I was sitting outside. We were outdoors.
Yeah,
an outdoor
under the box.
Yeah. So so Brenham, I think, has confidence. They they're working in a new quarterback, and I think they're figuring out they've got a lot of playmakers, and they have a tough defense. Their front seven is very good, and they've got an elite playmaker out wide in Chris Guidry, who really hurt Randle last year. He made some big time catches against Randle last year, and he's back. So, I think Brenham's a definite challenger. Bastrop out of the Austin area with their quarterback, Weston Nielsen. They're high powered. They can do some things. And then probably, Waco University, they're very, very talented. They don't have a lot of depth, and their front play on both sides of the ball is not the greatest. I'm actually going to see Waco University in a couple of weeks on a Thursday night down there in Waco. I live in South Fort Worth, so getting to Waco is a little more than an hour, which would be like for you driving to Conroe or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still in the Houston area, I think they're pretty talented, but I think those are kind of the chief. Liberty Hill seems a little bit down this year. I think the second high school is starting to really cut. They opened up a second high school. They're going to play varsity football next year. Legacy Ranch High School. And I think that's started to cut into, and they have a new coach too. Kent Walker left and went to Blanco, and so they have a new coach. And they're still running their offense, but it's just something that just doesn't seem to be right. I just think the new schools are starting to hurt them. So really, I think if you get outside of Iowa Colony, it's Brenham, it's Bastrop, and it's Waco University, in my opinion, are kind of the chief contenders there in Region 3. But I really, honestly, I would put Brenham in the category of Iowa Colony and Randle, and then I think there's a gap between the top three and everybody else, in my opinion.
Sure. You guys published a story just recently here about Landen. The legend of Landen Williams-Callis, right? And it was when I first got to the area, he was still in middle school, and I was talking with Brian Randle, and he said, "Hey, I got a kid coming up here that you're not going to believe." And I think 3 plays into the first game that I saw him play at the varsity level, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That's a 14-year-old doing things that he should not be doing against 17, 18-year-olds on the field. You guys, I know you've seen a lot of great players over the years, great running backs. It's Texas, right? There's just dripping in talent. Where does Landen fall for you in terms of like where juniors, I guess, are, right, at this point in his career? Where does he fall amongst what you've seen?
So for what I've seen, and I'm not an old timer. I mean, I've been doing this a little while now. I guess I kind of am an old timer, but I've been doing this since 2007, I guess. So 7, not quite 20 years yet. But in my time, now this is before I was a reporter. I would say Cedric Benson as a junior. That's a comp. Jonathan Gray from Aledo is probably another comp. Those are probably the 2 comps I see. Production wise, you could probably throw Adrian Peterson in there as well. But Adrian Peterson was a different type of runner than Landen was. Adrian Peterson was literally the biggest guy on his team, playing tailback. So, the other great, I guess the other great running back that I saw in high school was LaDainian Tomlinson. But as a junior, he was kind of a afterthought at Waco University. He was a fullback. He didn't, they were in our, my high school played against LT's high school, and he didn't do anything against us his junior year because he was a fullback. So I would say the 2 biggest comps that I have for him right now are probably Benson and Jonathan Gray, which is about as high a compliment as you can give a high school running back in Texas to be compared to those 2 guys.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But Landen's got his own style. He's very unique. I don't know if I've seen a guy quite like him. Just because he runs with flair. I mean, he's not a showboat, but he runs with flair. Houston people might remember this guy, Sam McGuffey from Cy-Fair, who went to Michigan. He kind of ran with that similar kind of flair, and he was kind of right at the forefront of the internet highlight video craze. And so I remember, we would watch highlights of Sam McGuffey here in Dallas, and so I Landed. He was productive, but not like to that level. But yeah, I'd say. Production-wise, you're talking about Cedric Benson, Jonathan Gray. Maybe this running style and flair, maybe Sam McGuffey would be a good comp for me.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about. Like, he's currently on pace, I think, maybe within a margin of error to pass his cousin Jaquiz Rogers in the all-time rushing yards list. In the top 10 there.
And I've heard the Jaquiz comps. Now I did not get to see Quiz in high
Sure,
school.
sure.
When he was playing, I was a reporter then, but I never got to see Jaquiz in person. So but I've heard that comp, and
Yeah.
I would say probably because they're related. Probably it is a decent comp. So I do want to throw that out there for the local fans. I can't compare him to Quiz. I didn't see Quiz in high school, but I can see the comp.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like if you look at Quiz's stat lines, like he did, 27 carries, 28 carries a game for that '07 Lamar team that won the state title. And Landon's getting a lot of his yards and a lot of his scores in some of these games. He's seeing the ball twice in the second half. It's efficiency that I think is really hard to replicate, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do recall. Lamar Consolidated. They needed Quiz to carry the ball 30 times a game. They played a lot of close football games in that state title run. They were in a lot of kind of 20-10 games. They needed that kind of workhorse. This is a little bit different because Landon, like you said, he's not playing the second half in a lot of these football games. He's hanging out, because they're up 50. So it's he's got 6 carries and he's scoring 4 touchdowns on 6 carries. It's like every other carry he's busting a touchdown run. It's pretty shocking. Now, the one thing I guess you could say, okay, if they get into another close game, can Landon handle 25 carries? Because they're gonna, you'll need that at some point. Yeah. Now he'll be fresh, hopefully, but those are the kind of things you look for. But I mean, it's very impressive, the efficiency in like I said, his yard. I mean, I'm sure he's averaging like 15 yards per carry or something stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's already over 860. It's insane stuff. The other thing I kind of wanted to feature here, we kind of talked about Lamar Consolidated because of Quiz, but the other big game for us this weekend, it might not be quite as big in the scope of the whole state and eyes on or playoff implications, but folks in Rosenberg really, really care about Battle of the Berg, right? Terry, Lamar, that's a rivalry. It's the 2 Rosenberg schools. That was I think probably the first game that I did when I got out to Texas, where I was like, oh no, it is really different here. I've covered in Ohio where there are small towns that totally shut down on Friday nights and everybody goes to the games. Like, how could it be better than this? And I went to a Battle of the Berg and said, oh, okay, this is how it's better than that. What rivalries have you gotten to see that like you kind of look forward to the banter and everything that goes along with it every year?
Oh man, there's a lot. My favorite rivalry is probably the Battle of the Arroyo down in the Rio Grande Valley, Harlingen and San Benito. You want to talk about the bigness of Texas high school football? Well, Harlingen and San Benito, you drive up, it feels like a college football game. There's people tailgating for 6 hours out there. There's every TV station in town is there because now they have UTRGV now, but at the time they didn't have college. So there's 5 television stations parked there with a game day set up, and people are cooking and music is blasting, and there was a Coast Guard flyover pregame, and there's 10,000 people there, and then there's a fireworks show at halftime. I mean, it's a big deal, and it's a huge deal down there, and it's not a real nasty rivalry. It's pretty tame, but it's very competitive, and they get after it. There's some YouTube stuff from the Harlingen San Benito rivalry, for folks who haven't seen it. It's pretty good stuff. It's a great one. Sherman Denison up in Texoma, north, on the Texas-Oklahoma border is a huge rivalry. Battle of the Axe. Longview Marshall. It's kind of a lopsided rivalry now, but it's a big rivalry. Those are probably my favorites. There's one up in Amarillo versus Tascosa. They call it Hell Week. It's a crazy week. So there's a ton of good ones. But I'd say number one for me is Harlingen San Benito. I forgot about the Mid-County Madness down there in Beaumont, Port Neches. I've been to that. I've been to. So the one time I went to Mid-County Madness was Port Neches Groves in Nederland. It was in Nederland, and the Port Neches Groves student section shot out a Roman candle across the field during the game into the student section at Nederland, and it actually hit the band director or something. Just crazy stuff. But yeah,
gosh.
Yeah, so I don't recommend doing that, y'all. But it just kind of told me, I was like, okay, this is crazy. These folks are nuts down here. This is crazy. So I forgot about Mid County Madness is another one that I've been to that's pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to ask you, is there a moment or a game or something that kind of stands out? But it'd be kind of hard to forget, fireworks being shot across the field.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my dad took. There was one year when Sherman and Denison played back in the 90s, and they were both really, really good. They were in the same district, and I think they were both state ranked in the top 10. And Sherman and Denison are decent sized towns. They were old 4A, now 5A at the time. To give a comp, I would say they're probably the same size as maybe a little smaller than Dickinson.
Okay.
So imagine two smaller Dickinsons right within 5 miles of each other playing, one school towns. It was a huge deal. Sherman plays in an old stadium right in the middle of town. And so we couldn't get a ticket because it's only seated like 6,000 or something, because it's a tiny little stadium right in the middle of downtown. There's no parking. It's an old stadium. It's cool, but it's old. Well, we parked. My dad drove a truck, and we parked on Highway 75 on the overpass with about 10 other cars, and we sat on top of my dad's truck with binoculars and looked into the stadium and watched the game. So that's one of my earliest core high school football memories, and it involves a big rivalry game.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That's can't say I've been able to stop on the highway and looking like that. I mean, maybe it's like a little kid driving past the ballpark. I grew up in St. Louis, so like driving past Busch Stadium, I try and peek in when we were going by.
Oh, heck yeah!
Not catching anything, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's cool, that you have, memories growing up and loving Texas high school football the way that you do. And obviously it's led to getting to cover the state as, whole of the state at an in-depth level like you do. I guess my question as, an editor at a paper where we've got 8 high schools that we cover right now, it'll be 9 and 10 here in the next couple of years. And that's kind of a pretty narrow focus compared to what you do. How do you guys do it? Every single year after year after year, it's the go-to, content for the sport in the state. How do you guys manage everything, and what's that workload like?
So I think the biggest, we have more. We're not an army of one like a lot of small newspapers are these days. We've got a great team. And I'm part of a great team, and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. And I think the biggest thing is relationships, and we try to build relationships. We try to be out at as many games as possible because we really don't want. And I try to do this as a reporter. I don't want to be the helicopter reporter. I don't want to just swoop in, if I was coming to your game Thursday, I don't want to swoop in Thursday and not have a background of the story, not know what's going on, and then swoop out Friday after the game and go do a different story. If I'm going to come in, I always defer to the local guys first on post-game stuff. I let, because you guys are covering them every week. I'm just the slappy who came in for that one game. But I try to do my homework and, text, I've done a good job cultivating relationships, and, and as our Dave Campbell's brand helps, the coaches grew up. It's such an iconic brand because it's been around since 1960 that coaches respect it, and the brand helps us a lot. And I think, I have, this is my part-time job. I have a full-time job in the finance industry. Now I have a 45-minute commute every day. So what I do a lot of times on my commute to work and from work is I'm listening to podcasts like this one to try to get the pulse of the state from the local guys. I have a Houston podcast. I have your podcast. I have an East Texas podcast. I have a Valley podcast. I have a West Texas podcast, a Panhandle podcast, a Metroplex podcast. Try to listen to the local writers and just take little tidbits if I can, and then take those tidbits and then try to, I'll watch over the course of a week 10, 12 games online, go back and rewatch them. I may speed watch some, but try to look for what the local guys are talking about, seeing if I can pick up on tendencies and things on my own. So it's a combination of things, but we can't do it without a great team. Like I said, our editor, Greg Tepper, does a great job leading us, and we've got a lot of great people. You'll see Greg Powers, who's our recruiting guy, Carter Yates, who's one of our high school reporters. I'm kind of the insider. I guess we look at it like Carter is the reporter. He's a great writer. He wrote the Landen Williams-Callis story.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like I guess if you were to put a comp on it. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Adam Schefter or anything, but I kind of have that kind of role where I've got the insider scoop, and I, because I have the relationships with the coaches, and then Mallory Hartley, who will be at Trailer Stadium, she does a lot of the recruiting interviews with the players, and then Ashley Pickle, does kind of all the producing and the online content, the Texan Live content that we have. So we got a great team that we all have balance, and I think the biggest thing is Texas is a big state, so you got to try to. It's a lot to take in. It feels like you're drinking from a fire hose a lot of the time. Yeah. So I try personally, especially like on Friday nights, is I try to break it up into small pieces and try to absorb it a little bit at a time. So it's a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not gonna complain about it because it's a lot of fun. It's they're paying me to watch football, and it's a pretty cool job.
That's what I always tell people too. Somebody will be like, "Oh, you're at work on a Saturday morning. Would you rather be anywhere else?" I'm like, "I'm getting paid to watch sports. I'm going to be at home on a Saturday morning watching sports for free otherwise." So I'm just
might as well get paid. Yeah, might as well get paid. So it's. I mean, Texas high school. You're not being a Texan. It's cool to get your perspective on it because you come into it with a different perspective. But I do think it's unique. I think it's special. I think there's great football that's played across the country. Don't get me wrong. I think the combination of things here in Texas, the level of play, the professionalism of the coaches, the facilities, the pomp and circumstance, everything that goes into it is really what puts Texas over the top, in my opinion.
There's a lot of stuff, and I'll just from my experience in Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, like talent-wise, there's more of it here. It's a little isolated, at least in the areas where I was at covering stuff. But it is, like you mentioned, the facilities and the way the programs carry themselves. I think if there were programs in the greater St. Louis area that kind of operated the way some of these programs down here would be, people are like, who do these guys think they are? But that's what you have to do, I think, to be successful in Texas. When that's what the top programs are doing, you want to mimic what they've got going on. Absolutely.
They're almost run like small colleges, especially the larger high schools here. It's funny, Illinois, there was a town in Illinois that we actually, I made, when I was with a different media company before I worked for Dave Campbell's, and I did an interview. The announcement of me joining Dave Campbell's was done in Effingham, Illinois.
Bleeding Hearts. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's right.
I was driving from Fort Worth to Toronto, Canada, and I stopped to eat in Effingham, and at Culver's in Effingham.
Yeah, right on the crossroads of like 55 and 64 or something like that.
Yep. So that's where I broke the news that I was joining the Dave, which was a dream come true for me. I'd always loved to read Dave Campbell's, and so to be actually offered a job and work for Dave Campbell's was a dream come true for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Matt, I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your time here. For maybe the grand total of probably one person that follows me that doesn't follow you or whatever, where are you going to be at this weekend? What games you've got, and where can they find all your stuff?
Yeah, so you can find all of our stuff at texasfootball.com. We have stuff that's for free. We also have a subscription package, and included in that subscription is access to Texan Live, where you can watch all kinds of, not just football games, but all kind of sports, high school sports all year round. I think it's a great deal. We mail you the magazine in the summer. You don't have to go hunting for it. We'll mail it to you directly. And then we mail you a recruiting magazine as well. You get access to Tepp and Stepp early, the state rankings. You get early access to state rankings. So there's some perks to being a subscriber for sure, but we also have a lot of free content, but we'd love for you to subscribe. Personally, you can find my most of my stuff is on texasfootball.com. My social media presence is primarily on Twitter or X. It's at Matt_Stepp817 and Stepp with 2 P's. I tweet a lot. Sometimes it's about high school football. Sometimes it's about food.
Yeah.
If the Baltimore Orioles are playing good, it might be a little Baltimore Orioles. Not a lot this year.
That was tough for them. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe a little U.S. men's national team soccer as well. So you just never know. So I think I'm an okay Twitter follower. So yeah, if you're not following me, I would love for you to click that follow button.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, again, this is Matt Stepp here with Dave Campbell. Oh, I'm sorry. I
didn't. I think you asked me where I was going to be this week. Sorry, I left that piece out.
Yeah, there you go.
Thursday night, I'll be in Garland, Texas, right outside Dallas. Garland and Naaman Forest. Garland versus Garland, Naaman Forest. Big game there. Friday night, I'll be in Stephenville, Texas. Huge game in Class 4A. 2 top 10 teams. Waco La Vega visiting the new stadium there in Stephenville. They have a brand new stadium they just opened up this year. And then Saturday, I'll be out in Abilene, Texas. So neutral site game, Odessa High and Colleen Ellison. But next Saturday, I will be back in the Houston area next Saturday, week 6. I got Cy Springs and Bridgeland Saturday night. Yeah, Saturday night at 6 o'clock there at Pridgeon Stadium in Cy-Fair. So that'll be back in the Houston area next weekend. So excited to get back to H-Town.
Right on. Well, hey man, safe travels this weekend. Hope to see you, like you said, somewhere along the road between here and Arlington this year. And keep up the great work.
Thanks, appreciate it, Sam. Enjoy the game Thursday night.
We'll do. And yeah, that again, I don't think anybody is more plugged into what's going on in this state, in this sport, than Matt Stepp and the guys at Dave Campbell's and ladies at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Really, really special to have a publication like that. It doesn't happen everywhere. I'll tell you. I talked about that obviously there in the show. I'm not a native Texan myself. I grew up in Illinois. It's basketball country. I grew up in St. Louis. Really, it's baseball country. There's football being played, but it's not the biggest thing, going on even high school campuses a lot of the time. And to have a singular publication that everybody is able to turn to year after year after year and count on getting reliable information, insightful looks, rankings that are updated. It's content that very, very few other places in this country get to enjoy at this level and depth in this sport. I have covered high school sports in several different areas, types of areas as well, rural communities where the whole town shuts down Friday night so everybody can go to the game. You go to a bar Friday night, everybody that's at the bar was at the game, and that's what they're talking about. And I mentioned this with Matt, but really, truly, in that scenario, I have never been to around Texas high school football in a professional capacity, and at that point in time, there's no way. It's okay. It's just Texas being Texas, puffing itself up, but it's different here. I don't need to tell you guys that. It's different here. It's better here, and people like Matt Stepp and everybody at Dave Campbell's Texas Football are why. They're a big part of the equation of how ingrained into the culture it is, and how knowledgeable people around the state are to what's going on across Texas high school football. So again, I thought this was a really cool opportunity to share this conversation with you guys and get us ready to take in as Matt said, probably the best game in the state this week. In Randle, Iowa Colony. There's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are watching and paying attention to this game, both at Traylor Stadium. Brian Randall said he thinks it might be a sellout, or at least the stands should be jammed packed. So we're hoping that this is going to be another great game, and if the Lions can extend what is currently the longest 11-man winning streak across Texas. And again, we'll be there from Traylor Stadium, 7 p.m. I'll be getting there a little bit earlier, getting some pregame thoughts out there, get to chat with some more, Dave Campbell's folks, and get excited for the game. So please, again, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this conversation, if you enjoyed this little mini preview show that we're throwing together here for, again, what we said, the game of the year. We're really excited to bring this one to you. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll find the story in the paper this weekend. It'll be in our Sunday edition, and excited to hear what you guys think. Let us know in the comment section, your score predictions. Drop a score prediction below. Who's going to get the better? Is it going to be Landen Williams-Callis and the Lions again, or the Pioneers going to get over that hump and third time the charm for IC? So for Joel Luna, who had a Veterans Night off tonight, I'm Sam Cinta again. Thank you for tuning in to the Fort Bend Herald Scoreboard Show, and I can't wait to recap all of Week 5's action with you guys Monday. So until then, take it easy, guys.